Farming is one of the most useful features in Minecraft, providing valuable crops and food for many players. But there's a lot of common farming errors people make all the time without realizing, and in this video, I'll be showing you 7 of the most frequent farming mistakes in Minecraft. Starting off, we got a pretty major one, not putting enough light sources around your farm. You see, crops need light to grow, and while they can get an abundance of sunlight during the day, they don't have that same kind of light at night. This can significantly inhibit their growth speed, so you need to make sure you light up your farm with some sort of light source. And I know I'm about to hear you say, but Aether, don't outdoor farms still get light from the moon and the sky? Why do I need to put extra torches if it's already coming from there? And that's a solid question, but this is actually a total myth. Although the skylight does help, on both editions of Minecraft, crops at night almost always grow slightly faster when there's a good amount of artificial light near them versus no light at all. The difference is especially noticeable on Bedrock edition, and for crops underground, you of course have no sunlight to help you, so artificial light is required in that situation anyway. Another great reason to have light on your farms is it prevents random mobs from spawning and potentially exploding or trampling all over your crops, which is really nice. It allows you to farm in peace, especially during nighttime. When it comes to lighting up a bigger sized farm though, just torches around the edges is not going to be enough. The middle crops are going to get absolutely none of that, so I would recommend to also put in light sources like jack-o'-lanterns or glowstones in the water pockets of your farm to light up those areas too. This next mistake is one you definitely did not know about though, and that is planting the same crop type next to each other. Yes, that's actually a really bad thing, even though it's the model of 99% of crop farms that people make. Just like in real life, planting the same type of crops right next to each other can actually slow the growth of them. If we just run a little side-by-side comparison here, we got a farm with all wheat and then a farm with alternating rows of wheat, potatoes, and carrots. Setting up both farms to grow from scratch and speeding up the footage, you can see the farm with the alternating rows of different crops actually grows much faster, almost twice as fast as the regular farm, and any pattern you do works. As long as you alternate the crops, you will get some good results. And again, this is something almost nobody knows about. Every player plants their wheat together, their potatoes together, even though that's actually way more inconvenient and it's slower to grow at the same time. So next time you make a farm in your survival world, keep this little tip in mind. It's super easy to implement as well. The next mistake on our list is using too much water. A lot of players, myself previously included, built their farms with these streams of water because it just makes sense. You want the water to be touching as many of the crops as possible. The more water, the better, right? Well, not really. While too much water doesn't exactly affect the growth of your crops in a negative way, you do have to keep one thing in mind, and that's that water takes up space on your farm. The more water you have, the less space you have to plant more crops. Here's an example so it makes more sense. Just one water source block can hydrate a 9x9 area of farmland around it. That's 80 blocks of farmland, 80 crops, all watered with just one water source block. You see how much more efficient this is? You don't need streams of water running down your whole farm. You can just have one source block for each 9x9 area, and you can use the rest of the space to plant more crops and get a higher yield. It's also much easier to build because you don't have to keep running back and forth from a river to get more water for your farm. Alright, so we've talked a lot so far about design mistakes you could have made in your farm, but what about the way that you harvest your farm? One of the biggest mistakes, especially late game players make, is not taking advantage of enchantments, specifically Fortune and Silk Touch. You see, when you harvest a crop, let's say potatoes, with a Fortune tool, you will actually get more yield than if you harvested it without. I mean, it's just free extra potatoes, why would you not want that? Plus, because most crops break instantly, it costs absolutely nothing to your tool's durability, so you can harvest your crops with a Fortune tool as much as you like. When it comes to melon farming though, you instead want to use the Silk Touch enchantment. Here's why. Villagers trade emeralds for whole melon blocks, and villager trading is the sole reason a lot of players farm melons in the first place. When you break melons normally, or with a Fortune tool, you get individual melon slices, and even if you do have a Fortune tool, breaking a melon block doesn't give you enough slices to craft a whole block. You might get 6 to 7 on average. However, when you use Silk Touch, you get the full melon block, which can then be directly traded with the villager. This is much more efficient. Of course, if you're not farming melons to trade with villagers, you can totally ignore this. I'm just saying this because villager trading is the main reason a lot of people even farm melons in the first place. Another massive mistake you can make when harvesting your farm is throwing away excess seeds after you replant your farm, like excess wheat seeds. A lot of people either discard them or just have an entire chest full of these extra seeds and they don't really do anything about it. But here's why that really isn't good. First of all, there's the simple fact that you could just use the extra seeds to plant more crops in your farm and just get a bigger farm. No farm can ever get too big, and I mean, there's nothing you can really lose by doing this. Sure, it does take a while to harvest, but that extra yield could also mean more food, more emeralds from villagers, etc. The main reason you shouldn't throw away your extra seeds though is if you craft a composter, which is very cheap by the way, only 7 slabs, you can actually dump all your excess seeds into the compost, and if you manage to fill up the composter, you will actually get a bunch of bone meal for entirely free. This bone meal can then be used to fertilize your farm and speed up its growth, meaning all the extra seeds you have lying around are actually incredibly useful for keeping your farm growing smoothly. And on the topic of bone meal, you should utilize it as much as possible. A lot of players make the mistake of just leaving the bones from skeletons they've killed rotting away in some random chest. There's absolutely no reason to do that. 1 bone is 3 bone meal, and again, that bone meal can be used to speed up your crop growth even further. You don't need to use it right as you replant the farm. You can wait for a bit and bone meal once the crop is almost fully grown. That way you increase your yield and save time spent waiting as well. And as a general tip, not even just for farming, unless you're planning on taming an army of dogs, there's actually zero reason to leave your bones as just bones. Craft them into bone meal because that can craft white dye, bone blocks, grow your farm, etc. Regular bones cannot do jack. And the final tip on our list is something incredibly simple, but a mistake that a lot of players still make. That is planting too little for your farm. I see a lot of people making wheat farms which are just 15 to 20 blocks, which is just really not that high of a yield at all. Keep in mind, all Minecraft farms take about the same amount of time to grow, that's not a lie, and if your farm is too small, you're spending a lot of time waiting for basically nothing in return. I'm not saying you need to have a super ultra mega farm stretching across your entire world, but just make it decent enough size where you don't need to harvest it every day to get major benefits out of it. If you guys did enjoy this video, then please consider dropping a like and a sub. Join my Discord server as well if you want to hang out with me and other people who support my channel. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.